I go around the country and engage the business community around a set of public policy issues and try to get them involved and try to get them activated around change and having an impact. And so what I'm here to do today is really provide a national business perspective of what I've seen, what we've come across these last several years, and to show you that there is a growing concern that some in business have with the political nature of our judicial campaigns and with the large amounts of money that's going into them. And I want to talk to you why a fair and impartial judiciary matters to the business community, because it does. Now, CED decided to take on the issue of judicial selection reform out of this growing concern with the rising cost of judicial campaigns. And when candidates for judicial office are forced to raise funds and accept donations from law firms and business groups that may appear before them, of course their impartiality can be questioned. And so in 2002, as was referenced before, CED released Justice for Hire, Improving Judicial Selection. Actually, it was in 2002. And it encourages states, among other things, to adopt a system such as you have here in Arizona. While no system is perfect, obviously, we're here to discuss why the current system of merit selection here in Arizona and other places like Missouri needs to be preserved, and why the business community ought to care. The independence of the judicial system is an essential component of any functioning democracy. However, the rapid increase of large financial contributions to judicial campaigns raises a number of concerns. A system in which candidates for the bench feel compelled to solicit campaign donations from parties that may have business before their court, as well as support from political parties and special interests with ideological agendas, presents at the very least the appearance of corruption. Judicial selection is thus becoming a political process that places pressure on lawyers, business organizations, and interest groups to get involved in the competition to elect the judge who's most favorable to their views. I was going to talk to you a little bit about Caperton versus Massey, but the justice did that for me. So, you know, you always have to be prepared to have another story to tell. But let me just add one thing, though. That $3 million that executive put into that race represented 60% of the funds that were raised and spent in that race, and I think that's fairly significant. But what I wanted to talk to you about, and Charlie will remember this, is that CED has a process. It's called a program committee, where executives deliberate and discuss what the next set of issues are going to be that we're going to address. And the topic of judicial selection came up. And in the middle of that discussion, one of the members of that committee, who is a senior executive at a very large company, had a cell phone message, and he got up and introduced and excused himself, and several minutes later came back and was laughing. And he told this group that the message he had was from the judge's campaign asking him for a very sizable contribution at the very time that our executives were deciding whether or not we should take this issue on. And I think it's a perfect example of what business leaders face, and it's really why there's this growing concern.
If I could add one thing, it was an executive, if I recall, Mike, from a major automaker in Michigan.
And I didn't say that because I wasn't sure if I could, but since you did, that's good.
There are only 3. Tomorrow there may be 2, so I mean, you can get away with it, I think so.
Well, but first, I mean, you know, by putting all this money into the campaigns, you know, business, why should they care? They get a black eye. I mean, it's very clear to many that they're buying outcomes, and business needs to care about this. And, you know, in this post-Enron era, and with the financial collapse and all of these outrageous bonuses that executives are getting, you know, business really needs to be concerned about the way they look and their reputation. I mean, they're down there with members of Congress and, excuse me, some lawyers, and I think that business needs to care about that. But also, major companies can be found doing business in just about every state. Methods of judicial selection can have a major effect on business and the transactions that take place in the economy. Plaintiffs can choose the state court that will be most favorable to them, and business can stop selling products in a particular state that entails a higher risk of litigation. And of course, the costs of all this are borne out by employers and employees and consumers alike. So what we're finding is that that business does, they want to win, that's obvious, but they don't want to win at all costs. And that what they really want is a fair and a level playing field. Several years ago, there was a survey with the Chamber of Commerce that talked about how business fares better as far as outcomes go are concerned in states where there is a system of merit or appointment as opposed to election of judges. So it's in their benefit to have a system such as you have here in Arizona or places like Missouri. Before I finish, I did want to talk to you about two other things. One is the Caperton case, and talk to you about the fact that CED, Caperton versus Massey, submitted an amicus brief. And we sort of had to do this on the run. It was done over the Christmas holiday, and we didn't really have a lot of time to work with the attorneys in putting this together. But we were told that while many companies would be supportive of CED putting this brief together, that they wouldn't actually be public because they didn't want to stick their neck out. And we decided to go out to several companies and ask them to sign on to this brief. And in a few short days, we were successful in getting Lockheed Martin, PepsiCo, Walmart, Intel, and a couple of other organizations to support this brief. And what I would say to you is that if we had, and if it wasn't the holiday, if we had several more weeks, I think we could have got maybe 5 or 10 more companies to stand with us with this brief. And I think that's very, very significant. I think there's some that would say 5 or 10 years ago, you wouldn't have had companies who would have taken a bold stand and put their name on such a document. I'll finish by referencing a poll that CED conducted about a year and a half ago with the Zogby Group, and it sort of backs up this sentiment. 4 in 5 business leaders worry that financial contributions have a major influence on decisions rendered by judges. 79% think that contributions and political pressure will make judges accountable to politicians and special interest groups instead of the law and the Constitution. And 97% of the business leaders in this poll said that judges should recuse themselves, such as the case in the Massey case, recuse themselves from cases involving who've contributed financially to the political campaigns of that judge. I'd end by saying, I heard on several times today judicial salaries. That is actually an interesting way to engage the business community, because when business leaders learn that judges are making what they are making, they're appalled. They recognize to get and attract good talent, you've got to pay a fair wage. And we've had, in one case, an executive in Kansas and Missouri who got involved in this issue on that one case because he thought it was appalling, and then we engaged on several other issues as well. So one way to engage the business community is around judicial salaries and how low they are. Happy to answer any questions afterward, but I'll turn the floor over to Sally.